In a lonely western town, a widow with 3 sons faces rejection, heartbreak, and danger, until a mysterious cowboy steps out of the dust and says the words that change everything: "You're home now." Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Where are you watching from? Let's get started. The wind carried the scent of dust, sweat, and gunpowder through the dying light of evening as the small town of Willow Creek settled into its uneasy silence. Somewhere down the crooked dirt road, a woman stood with 3 boys at her side, each no older than 10, their faces smeared with travel dust and their eyes lost somewhere between hunger and hope. Her name was Clara Dawson, a widow who'd buried her husband under a crooked oak 5 towns back. For the past month, she had wandered from one settlement to another, searching for work, mercy, or maybe just a kind word. But mercy was a rare coin out west, and kind words were even rarer. The moment she stepped into Willow Creek, she could feel the stares. Men on porches stopped rocking. Women paused their gossip mid-sentence. The blacksmith's hammer stilled against the anvil. The town didn't like strangers, especially not the kind dragging 3 hungry mouths behind them. "Ma," little Ben whispered, tugging her sleeve. "Is this home now?" She looked down at him and forced a smile that her heart didn't believe in. "Maybe, sweetheart. Maybe it is." But deep down, she knew it wasn't. The saloon doors creaked open, spilling laughter and piano music into the dry air. Clara walked past it, clutching her tattered shawl closer. Her boots were split, her steps uneven. Her husband had been gunned down by bandits on their way west, leaving her with nothing but a wagon, a memory, and 3 boys who deserved more than a mother who kept promising things she couldn't give. She stopped at the general store and pushed the door open. "Evenin'," she said softly. The storekeeper, a plump man with a handlebar mustache, looked up. "Help you, ma'am?" "I'm lookin' for work. I can cook, clean, or help with the accounts." The man's expression shifted. He rubbed his chin, avoiding her eyes. "Town's full up, ma'am. Ain't much room for." "Please," she said. "Just enough so I can feed my boys." He sighed, shaking his head. "Try the boarding house. Miss Alcott sometimes takes in strays." The word strays stung sharper than a whip. But she thanked him anyway and turned to leave, the boys following close behind. By the time they reached the boarding house, night had fallen. The lamps flickered along Main Street, and the sound of boots echoed down the wooden walkways. Clara knocked softly on the door. An old woman answered, her face lined deep as the canyons around town. "Yes? I'm Clara Dawson. I was told you might have work or a room." The old woman's gaze drifted down to the 3 boys. "You married?" "I was. My husband's gone. Then I got nothin' for you." Clara's throat tightened. "We can sleep in the barn, ma'am. I'll work for it." "No use bringin' more trouble under my roof," Miss Alcott said and shut the door. For a long time, Clara stood there staring at the chipped paint on that door, the sound of laughter spilling from somewhere behind it. Her oldest, Sam, tried to be brave, like his father would have been. "We can sleep under the wagon again, Ma," he said softly. She smiled weakly. "We'll be fine." But she knew fine had long stopped meaning anything. They made their way to the edge of town where the ground was hard and cold. She spread her shawl over the boys and sat beside them, trying not to cry. Somewhere in the dark, a horse neighed. And then came the sound of slow boots crunching over dirt. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, his hat pulled low, a long duster brushing his spurs. His eyes glinted in the lamplight, sharp, weary, but kind in a way Clara hadn't seen in months. "You folks lost?" he asked. Clara rose quickly, alarmed. "We're not lookin' for trouble." He raised a hand. "Didn't say you were." His voice was deep, gravelly, the kind that carried weight without shouting. "Name's Colt McAllister. I own a small ranch west of here. Saw you talkin' to Miss Alcott earlier. Town can be unfriendly to outsiders. Clara studied him warily. We'll be movin' on come morning. He looked at the boys huddled under the shawl. You don't look like you got anywhere to move to. She didn't reply. After a moment, he said quietly, there's an extra cabin on my land. Ain't much, but it's dry. You and the boys can stay a spell if you want. Her heart jumped. Why would you do that? Colt shrugged. Maybe 'cause I been where you are. For a long time, she said nothing. But something in his tone, calm, honest, unforced, made her nod. That night, Colt led them out toward his ranch. The moonlight stretched over the plains, painting everything in silver. Clara rode beside him, her boys asleep in the wagon. For the first time in months, she let herself breathe. When they reached the ranch, Colt helped her down. Cabin's out back. Ain't fancy, but it'll keep the cold off. She stepped inside. It smelled of pine and dust. A small stove sat in the corner, a table, 2 chairs, and a bed big enough for the boys. It felt like heaven. Thank you, she whispered. He tipped his hat. You're home now. The word struck her deeper than she expected. Home. She hadn't heard that word in so long, it almost hurt. The next weeks passed like a slow sunrise. Clara rose before dawn, cooked for Colt and his hands, mended shirts, tended chickens. Her boys learned to ride and feed the horses. The ranch was quiet, surrounded by golden fields that stretched for miles. Colt kept to himself mostly. He was a man of few words, the kind that carried a past like a scar under his shirt. But every now and then, Clara caught him watching the boys with a faraway look, half sorrow, half longing. One evening, after supper, she found him fixing a fence. The sky burned red over the hills. You don't have to keep helpin' us, she said softly. He looked up. I ain't helpin'. Your ear neen, your keep. You know what I mean. He smiled faintly. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. Why'd you really take us in, Colt? He leaned on the fence post, eyes shadowed. Once, a woman did the same for me. My ma. After Pa was killed, folks turned their backs. She never did. Guess I just figured someone ought to pass that forward. The silence between them stretched easy and warm. But peace never lasts long out here. 2 weeks later, trouble came riding into town. A gang of 3 men, rough and mean, with dust-blackened coats and eyes like wolves. They were looking for someone, a woman named Clara Dawson. By sundown, word reached Colt. He found Clara by the well, drawing water. You got something to tell me? He asked quietly. Her hands trembled. They're here, aren't they? Who? She swallowed hard. My husband's killers. Colt froze. They followed me, she whispered. They wanted money he didn't have. I thought I lost them miles back. But they always find me. Colt's jaw tightened. You should have told me sooner. I didn't want to bring danger to your door. He looked toward the barn where her boys were playing. Danger's already here. That night, Colt loaded his rifle. He stood guard by the porch as the wind howled through the trees. When dawn came, the gang rode in. Dust trailed behind their horses like smoke. The leader, a scar-faced man named Reddick, dismounted and called out, We just want what's ours, Cowboy. Hand over the woman and her brats, and we'll ride away easy. Colt stepped forward, shotgun in hand. Ain't yours to take. Reddick sneered. You want to die for a woman you barely know? Colt's voice was calm. Ain't about knowin'. It's about what's right. The standoff lasted seconds that felt like years. Then the first shot cracked the morning. Bullets screamed through the air. Colt dove for cover, firing back from behind the porch. One of Reddick's men went down in the dirt. Clara pulled her boys inside, heart hammering in her chest. When the smoke cleared, 2 men lay still. Reddick, bleeding from his arm, staggered to his horse. "You'll regret this, Cowboy," he spat, before thundering off into the plains. Colt leaned against the railing, breathing hard. Clara ran to him. "You're hurt." He looked at the blood seeping through his sleeve and gave a faint grin. "Ain't the first time." She pressed a cloth to the wound, her hands shaking. "You could have been killed." He met her eyes. "You and those boys, you're the first good thing that's come my way in years. I wasn't about to let that go." Tears burned her eyes. "Colt." He reached up, brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You're home now, Clara. Ain't nobody gonna take that from you." Months passed. The ranch grew alive again. The boys laughed louder, the horses ran freer, and the pain of the past slowly turned into something gentler, something that felt almost like peace. Clara would sometimes watch Colt from the window, his broad figure cutting through the dawn light as he worked the fences. He'd lost something once, just like her, but together, they were building something new. One night, as the stars spread wide across the sky, Clara stepped outside. Colt was sitting by the fire pit, whittling a piece of wood. "Reddick won't stop," she said quietly. "He'll come back." Colt nodded. "Then I'll be ready." She looked at him, really looked. "You've done more for us than anyone ever has." "Why?" He tossed the carved piece into the fire. "Maybe, 'cause when I found you, I realized I wasn't livin'. Just existin'. You changed that." Her voice trembled. "You gave us a home, Colt." He turned to her, eyes steady. "No, Clara. You gave me one." They stood there in silence, the crackle of fire between them, the cold wind carrying away the ghosts of yesterday. From that night on, the ranch became something more than shelter. It became family. The town that once rejected Clara now spoke her name with quiet respect. They saw how she worked, how her boys grew strong, how Colt McAllister, once the loneliest man west of the river, walked beside her like he'd finally found his reason to stay. And sometimes, when dawn broke over Willow Creek, Clara would stand by the porch and whisper to herself, softly, almost in disbelief, "We're home now." But deep down, she knew the truth. They weren't just home. They were finally free. And that freedom, paid for in loss, in courage, in love unspoken, was something no man, no storm, and no gun could ever take away again.